This is a machine, a Cisco machine that is big enough for the city of San Francisco, and you're leaning against almost $750,000 of equipment.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Throughout this day in cyberspace, images poured in from all over the world, from Malaysia to Moscow, Iceland to India. But not every note on the net is upbeat on this day. There is controversy over a new telecommunications bill President Clinton signs into law. A provision in that bill banning indecent material raises questions at Mission Control about what should be included in the cyberspace publication. This story about a virtual sex service does make the final cut. And speaking of political clout, one of the photographers assigned to document this day in cyberspace is Tipper Gore, wife of the vice president.
You don't mind if I take a few digital cyberspace photos of you?
Her subject, Vietnam veterans who plan to communicate on the internet about their problems and where to go for help. She is using a digital camera instead of film, making it easier to feed the photos to Mission Control.
Look at that one.
Among those exploring that new frontier on this day are thousands of students all over the country. From Orlando, Florida,
Nice graphics.
to Denver, Colorado.
What I find exciting is all of the different places you can go and the wide variety of topics that you can explore.
Their enthusiasm is matched in kind at the other end of the line.
And the pictures came in from the North Pole and from Antarctica, and now my Malaysian elephants have come in from the jungles of Malaysia. That part is just so wonderful. I mean, I've heard from all the most remote places. I haven't heard from France yet. You know what I mean? It's like...
It's hard to sleep, I'll tell you. I was lying there just wanting to get back and see, and I walked in and saw these amazing stories, particularly this one from Africa of this guy who flies through with an airplane, missionary, doctor guy, and it freaked me out because I came in here and realized that they had been shot while I had been sleeping and then published, and millions of people had seen them all in the course of me being asleep for 2 hours.
Some 4 million people around the world tuned in during a 24-hour period. The end result of this project will be a CD-ROM and a book entitled 24 Hours in Cyberspace, the latest in a series of day-in-the-life photography books, which raises a question. Does the project amount to anything more than boldly going where no coffee table book has gone before?
It's no different, really, than the skepticism people in radio had about television when it started.
And this wave out here is about 5 feet.
So many stories, so little time to surf them all.
And joining us now from the 24 Hours in Cyberspace Control Center is the project director, Rick Smolin. Now, Rick, you've done a day-in-the-life kinds of photographic projects before, a day in the life of Japan or a day in the life of the United States, and you sent journalists and photojournalists out to record these kinds of things. But I gather this was an entirely different kind of animal.
Well, you know, we've been trying to come up with an analogy to people who had never spent time in the web, and my father was out here for Macworld about 3 weeks ago. And I was saying, Dad, imagine if you and Mom could take a picture of my nephew Reed and put it on your computer screen, and anyone in the world, if you gave them a magic frequency, could dial that frequency and be watching whatever you had on your screen. It's like you were broadcasting to the entire world. And I think it was the first time that it made sense to him. I think a lot of people think that the internet and the World Wide Web, this thing that we're actually showing pictures on, is some like email with photographs or something. It's very, very different. On the World Wide Web, you can kind of put a page up, and it's like putting your hand up and saying, I have a problem I'm trying to solve. Has anybody else in the world, anywhere in the world, ever tried solving this problem before?
Is this a phenomenon that, at least for now, is just a relatively small portion of the population, those freaks who are in the web and talking to each other, and they're a sort of loud minority?
We called our project 24 Hours in Cyberspace, but the subtitle is Painting on the Walls of the Digital Cave. And we were doing that in a way kind of making fun of ourselves, because I think what we're doing actually right now is actually quite primitive. I think this is sort of the early pre-Model T days of this new medium. We found that the internet is actually more important to many people in developing countries, in third world countries, in Eastern Europe, where the telephones barely work, where the internet is really their lifeline to the rest of the world, both to communicate with the world and to get information about the rest of the world. The other thing that we did with this project, which I hope people, in fact, we've been getting some incredible statistics. Yesterday, we had more than 4 million hits. There were more than 4 million times that people all over the world.
That tuned in, right?
People that actually came and touched the pages of our site. One night we opened up this little window on the screen which allowed us to look at not who is visiting our site, but where they were coming from. And Beijing, Moscow, Sydney, Fiji, Singapore. It was so exciting to think that we'd all been in this dark room basically for 24 hours, sort of wondering if anybody out in the world cared about what we were doing. And suddenly we could actually see the results instantly of where they were and what pages they were looking at on our site.
Project Director Rick Smolin's a big project, and we thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Forrest.
That is our report for tonight. I'm Forrest Sawyer in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
You can find ABC News in cyberspace through America Online, keyword ABC News. And you can follow the 1996 presidential campaign and get up-to-the-minute primary results on the World Wide Web at electionline.com.
Nightline is a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.